The holiday gauntlet coming home for Christmas means a forced march through my mom's parade of blind dates. First up, the trust fund baby. I lied and told her I was unemployed. The disgust in her eyes was a billboard. And you think you're qualified to be sitting here? She was about to grab her purse and storm out when I dialed a number. Her phone buzzed on the table. I spoke into my own phone. Ms. Beck, I'm calling about the overdue interest on your $15,000 personal loan. When her face went bone white, the phone nearly slipped from her hand. You're lying. Her voice was sharp, but it had all the structural integrity of a wet paper towel. Last Friday, 3 p.m. Chase Bank, personal lending department. I recited, my voice flat. The panic in her eyes was total. Her lips trembled. She snatched her purse like it was on fire and bolted from the restaurant without a single look back. I didn't give a second thought. I just drove home. The second I walked in the door, my mom poked her head out of the kitchen, her face lit with anticipation. So, what did you think? Leanne is great, isn't she? Her family is very well off. I poured myself a glass of water. Not interested. What? Mom rushed over, wiping her hands on her apron. Why not? She's a beautiful girl. Her father owns a chain of luxury car dealerships. I took a sip of water. She's in debt. So what? Young people have a little debt. It's normal. It's not a little. How much? At least 30 grand. A collector just called me by mistake, looking for an interest payment. $50,000? Good heavens. And she's pretending to be some kind of heiress? She almost scammed my son. Mom paced back and forth in a tight circle. What a disaster. A total disaster. Then she stopped, a new glint in her eye. Good thing I had a backup plan. Your Aunt Carol set you up with another one this afternoon. 3 o'clock. The Daily Grind coffee shop. Don't be late. 3 o'clock on the dot. The Daily Grind. My new date was already there. Tucked into a corner booth, Tiffany Vance sat, makeup flawless, chin held at a regal angle. I'd barely settled into my seat before she started talking, her eyes glued to her phone screen. The matchmaker said you were a decent prospect. Her painted nails tapped on glass. My standards aren't that high. Just a few things. First, she said, holding up a finger with a blood-red nail, a condo downtown. At least 1,500 square feet, paid in full, and my name has to be on the deed. I picked up my water. Second, she raised another finger, a $100,000 engagement gift. It's a sign of respect, and a full Cartier love collection for me, not just the bracelet. I took a drink. Third, she leaned forward, her eyes sharp. I don't plan on working after we're married. You'll need to be making at least $250,000 a year. Oh, and you'll hire a maid for the housework. I set my glass down. Fourth, her words came faster now. When we have kids, it's a private birthing suite at Cedars-Sinai and a full-time night nurse for the first year. I tapped my fingers on the table. And fifth, she finally looked at me, a smile on her face like she was bestowing a great favor. The kids take my last name. The Vance family line is very important. The air hung thick for a few seconds. I stretched my lips into a smile. Ms. Vance. Yes, she arched an eyebrow, clearly expecting me to start negotiating. Your teeth, I said, pointing my own front tooth. You have a piece of spinach. A big green one. Her expression shattered. Her hand flew to her mouth, her face turning a shade of crimson I'd previously only seen on sports cars. You also, I said, standing up and looking down at her. Are you done with your list of demands? She was furious. What? If you can't deliver, then get lost. I nodded. Fair enough. I turned to leave. Good luck finding a half-blind sucker who makes $250,000 a year, owns a downtown condo outright, and is willing to give up his family name. I paused at the door. Oh, and I'd recommend a quick trip to the restroom. I had just stepped outside when my phone exploded. It was Mom. Alex, how was it? Carol said Tiffany is just gorgeous and comes from such a good family. I opened my car door. Not interested. Again, Mom sounded desperate. For heaven's sake, what was wrong with her? I started the engine. She had spinach in her teeth. What? She also wants a downtown condo in her name, a $100,000 cash gift, a husband making $250K, $1 million baby plan, and for the kids to take her name. The other end of the line went dead silent for 3 full seconds. I'll be damned. My mom's roar nearly blew out my speaker. What is wrong with these people? A spinach-toothed monster. She can go wish in one hand and see which fills up faster. My own mother would be spinning in her grave. The rage lasted all of 3 seconds before it morphed back into determination. This afternoon, no, tomorrow, she said, still out of breath. Tomorrow, I'm having Linda set you up with someone better. I'm going to call Carol right now and give her a piece of my mind. What kind of gold-digging goblins is she sending our way? The line went dead. The engine hummed. I rubbed the bridge of my nose. There's another one? The next day, my mom practically shoved me out the door. Alex, hurry, hurry. Linda swears on her life, this one's a keeper, she chirped. Veronica Sharp, a lawyer, from a big firm downtown. Very serious, very successful. A quiet lounge called The Study. 11 a.m. You have to give this one a real shot. It was 5 till 11. A private booth in a hushed, wood-paneled lounge. Veronica Sharp was already there. Gold-rimmed glasses, hair in a perfect, severe bun. A cup of black tea sat before her, next to a thick manila folder. I sat down. She looked up, her eyes as sharp as scalpels, scanning me from head to toe. Mr. Miller? Her voice was steady, without a ripple of emotion. That's me. My time is valuable, so let's get straight to the point. She adjusted her glasses, slid a stapled packet of A4 paper from the folder, and pushed it across the table. This is a draft of my prenuptial agreement. Please review it. If there are no issues, you can sign and initial, and then we can discuss moving forward. I raised an eyebrow, but didn't touch the papers. Ms. Sharp, we just met. Efficiency is a virtue, she said, unmoved. Feelings can be developed over time, but foundational principles must be established first. This agreement protects the interests of both parties, primarily mine. I picked up the stack of paper, still warm from the printer. Prenuptial agreement of asset allocation and spousal obligations, draft. The clauses were a dense forest of legalese, including but not limited to total separation of assets, forfeiture of 80% of my post-tax income to a joint account managed solely by her, all personal debts to remain my own, all household duties to be performed or paid for by me, children to be conceived via IVF with gender selection and would bear her surname. I would be solely responsible for the financial support of my own parents, and a draconian infidelity clause with astronomical penalties. I flipped to the last page, where a handwritten addendum stood out. Addendum 1. The male party must guarantee a state of premarital abstinence and provide a signed certificate from a board-certified physician to that effect. The frequency and nature of postmarital sexual relations will be determined at the sole discretion of the female party, who reserves the right to refuse the male party's advances at any time for any reason. The male party shall not express dissatisfaction or engage in passive-aggressive behavior as a result. Finished. Veronica took a sip of her tea, her tone as mild as if she were discussing the weather. You may ask questions, but the core principles are non-negotiable. If you sign, we'll have a basis for getting to know one another. I placed the agreement gently back on the table. Ms. Sharp. Yes. She set down her cup. You're very professional. Very thorough, I said, my voice sincere. Her lips twitched, just barely. A flicker of pride. Too, however, my tone shifted, and I tapped my finger precisely on the handwritten clause. You're acquiring, I provide a certificate of premarital abstinence. Ms. Sharp, you're an attorney. You should know perfectly well that no hospital or doctor's office can or will issue a so-called virginity certificate. The request is not only legally unenforceable, it's practically absurd. So, following the thorough logic of your agreement, would it be appropriate for me to ask you to provide the same? Veronica's face flashed from white to red to a blotchy purple. The look behind her gold-rimmed glasses was one of pure, humiliated rage. She slammed her hand on the table. You are disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. To ask such a question. You're a pig. You have no class. Disgusting. I laughed humorlessly and stood up. And demanding someone produce a certificate that doesn't exist isn't. Ms. Sharp, this agreement isn't about protecting both parties. It's about crowning you empress and making your husband a live-in ATM who does chores and is prepared to be thrown out with nothing at a moment's notice. I picked up the stack of papers and waved it in front of her. You should save this indentured servitude contract for the next brave soul willing to be your legal slave. Goodbye. Ignoring her sputtering rage, I turned and walked out. The second I stepped outside the lounge, my phone rang, right on schedule. My mom's voice was laced with cautious optimism. Alex, how'd it go this time? A lawyer. I got in the driver's seat. Not interested. Again. Why? She's a lawyer. A respectable professional. She brought a prenup for me to sign. A prenup? What's that? In short, she gets 80% of my salary. I do all the housework or pay for it. The kids take her name, I support my parents on my own, and if I even have an impure thought about another woman, I lose everything and get kicked to the curb. What? Oh. And she demanded a doctor's note proving I'm a virgin. There were 2 seconds of dead silence, followed by an eruption of biblical proportions. A virginity certificate. Why doesn't she go get a certificate proving she's not certifiably insane? 80% of my son's salary? Who she thinks she is, the IRS? I sighed. My mom was still huffing. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. Linda, you get over here. What kind of monster did you? I decisively ended the call. Peace and quiet at last. I started to drive home, staring at the backed-up traffic ahead of me, and let out a long, slow breath. Surely, there can't be another one. I had barely stepped through the door when my phone began vibrating like it was spring-loaded. Mom flashed on the screen. I sighed and answered. Alex. My mom's words came out like machine gun fire. Marie swore on a stack of Bibles, this one is the real deal. Her name is Brenda, a kindergarten teacher. They say she's the sweetest person, so nurturing, and she specifically asked to meet you. Right now. The cafe by the lake in the park. Go on. Marie said she's already there. So much for a breather. I got back in the car and headed for the park. At the lakeside cafe, under the shade of a large oak, sat a woman in a floral dress. She looked gentle, almost serene, as she stirred a glass of iced tea. The sunlight dappled her hair, creating a picture of quiet domesticity. It was all an illusion. I walked over and sat down. Brenda? Ux. She looked up, revealing a face that was pleasant enough, but with a hard set to her mouth. The serenity evaporated the moment I sat down. You must be Alex, she said, putting her spoon down without any pretense of small talk. Marie probably told you about me. I'm on a tight schedule, so let's be direct. Go ahead, I said, picking up my water. I'm a simple person. I'm just looking for a stable, family-oriented man. Her words were clipped and rapid. Marriage is about planning for the future. And my brother, you must have heard about him. He's the only boy in our family. He's our whole world. A sinking feeling hit my gut. Here we go. First, she held up a finger, the engagement gift. $75,000. It's for good luck. That money isn't for me, of course. It's for my brother's down payment on a house. And it has to be in cash. It's a tradition in our family. I said nothing. Second, another finger went up the house. It has to be in a good school district, at least 3 bedrooms. As for the name on the deed, she paused, her gaze unflinching. It needs to be in my name and my brother's name. I nearly choked on my water. Your brother's name? Of course, she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Where is Kevin supposed to live when he gets married? Your family is buying the house. What's the problem with his name being on it? We're all family. He can take the guest room. There will be space for his wife and kids later. I put my glass down. It suddenly felt hot to the touch. Third, she continued, completely ignoring my reaction, your paycheck gets direct deposited into an account I manage. My brother isn't working right now. He's learning a trade. His living expenses, tuition, spending money, and any cost for when he starts dating, that will all come from your salary. Don't worry, I'll be responsible. It's all for my brother. Fourth, my parents are getting older, and they're not in the best health. We'll be responsible for their retirement and medical bills. Your parents have pensions, right? They shouldn't need too much from us. And finally, my job is exhausting. I'm with kids all day, so you'll have to handle most of the chores. Oh, and when my brother is staying with us, you'll need to do his laundry and cook for him. He's just a boy. He doesn't know how to do those things. She finally fell silent, looking at me with an expression of pure, unadulterated entitlement. I suddenly started to laugh. Brenda, yes, she said, arching an eyebrow, as if I were about to quibble over a minor detail. 3, your brother. I began slowly. His name is Kevin Hayes, right? Dropped out of the community college's IT program last year. Her expression faltered. How did you know that? And he's a big fan of that mobile game, Clash of Kings? trying to hit the top of the leaderboards, sinking a lot of money into it. I pressed on. Her panic was palpable now. Did you run a background check on us? A background check. I scoffed, pulling out my phone. I opened a notification from a collections app and turned the screen toward her. Funny thing, I do a little freelance work in credit risk assessment. Your brother, Kevin Hayes, took out about $25,000 in high-interest payday loans through our platform. He's been delinquent for 3 months. The interest is piling up fast. The collectors have been blowing up his emergency contact, which is you. It looks like you blocked all their numbers. On my screen, clear as day, was Kevin Hayes' name, the last 4 of his social security number, the loan amount, and his delinquency status. Brenda's face went white. All the blood drained from it, leaving a pasty, terrified mask. Her lips trembled. You're lying. Those are scam texts, she gasped, jumping to her feet. You and I both know they're not, I said, putting my phone away. 75 grand for your brother's down payment? A house in his name? My entire salary to support your family, and I have to be his butler. Brenda, you're not looking for a husband. You're looking for a human ATM with housekeeping skills to serve your deadbeat, debt-ridden brother. This one's on me, I said, gesturing to our drinks. But I'd suggest you figure out how to start paying off that debt. The next collection call might just go to the principal's office at your school. I turned and walked away, leaving her frozen in place, her face as pale as a ghost. I was just reaching my car when my phone started vibrating furiously. It was my mom, her voice even more tentative this time. Alex, honey, this one. I slid into the driver's seat. Not interested. Why not? It was as if she'd expected it, but still held out a sliver of hope. Marie said Brenda was such a sweet girl, sweet. I started the car. Mom, she wanted 75 grand in cash as a down payment for her brother's house. What? She demanded that the house we live in be put in her and her brother's name. What? And that my entire salary go to her so she can pay for her brother's living expenses, tuition, and dating life. Oh, for the love of God. I'd also be expected to do all the housework, including cooking and laundry for her brother when he visits. Oh, and one more thing, I added, delivering the final blow. Her brother owes my company 25 grand in overdue loans. She's his emergency contact and has been dodging our collection calls for months. The line went completely dead. For several seconds, I heard nothing. Then, a sound of utter defeat. Marie, is this some kind of sick joke? Are you trying to find my son a wife or a financial parasite with a leech for a brother? The house in the brother-in-law's name? Our money to raise him? Did our ancestors rob the Hayes family tomb in a past life? My grandmother's ashes are going to rise up and curse me from the urn. This is a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. I quietly hung up. The world was blessedly silent again. I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked tired. I rubbed my throbbing temples. I never thought coming home for Christmas would involve this many blind dates. Maybe I should just leave town. But I underestimated my mother's resilience. 10 minutes later, my phone rang again. Brenda's ashen face was still a faint image in my mind. I took a deep breath and answered. Mom. Alex, forget about the teacher. We're moving on. Her words were a blur. I found someone better. This time, I vetted her myself. Your Aunt Linda's own niece, Lily. She just got back from living in Europe. So sophisticated, cultured, and an absolute sweetheart. Tonight, Poseidon's table, 6:30. Oh, and Linda said Lily is a little shy, so she's bringing her best friend along to break the ice. Bringing a friend? To Poseidon's table? Where appetizers cost more than a car payment. The familiar alarm bells started ringing. Mom, she's bringing a friend. Oh, it's just to make it more comfortable. It shows she's taking this seriously. My mom cut me off. It's settled. 6:30, the Poseidon room. You have to go. She hung up before I could protest. Fine. One more battle. I turned the wheel and headed for Poseidon's table. 6:28 p.m. I pushed open the heavy door to the private dining room. Only one woman was inside, dressed head to toe in designer labels. Lily Zhao was studying the menu, her finger tracing a path over pictures of exotic seafood. On the table was an open bottle of Voss water and a list of dishes she had already jotted down. Mr. Miller? You're punctual, she said, looking up and giving me a quick once-over. Have a seat. My friend Amy is stuck in traffic. She'll be here any minute. She handed the menu to me with an air of command. Take a look, see if there's anything you want to add. I've already ordered a few of their signature dishes. I glanced at the menu. Holy hell. Australian lobster, bluefin toro, sashimi, a dozen French oysters, steamed leopard coral grouper, and the house special seafood chowder. And in a decanter on the table, a 2010 Chateau Margaux was already breathing. You've gone to a lot of trouble, Ms. Zhao, I said, closing the menu and placing it back on the table. Not at all. She waved her hand, her smile widening. It's our first time meeting. We should eat well. Amy is a real foodie. She knows all the best things. She can give us her expert opinion when she arrives. She changed the subject, leaning forward slightly. So what is it you do? Alex? Linda mentioned you started your own company. What field is that in? The next 15 minutes were a one-sided job interview. She grilled me on company revenue, my personal income, the location of my condo, my parents' retirement funds, and my 5-year plan. I kept my answers brief, almost evasive, my eyes occasionally flicking toward the door. The list of dishes she'd ordered was giving me heart palpitations. Lily seemed slightly annoyed by my lack of enthusiasm, but her mood brightened at the thought of the impending feast and her friend's arrival. She launched into a story about a shopping trip to Europe with Amy, and how hard it was to get her hands on a limited edition Hermes bag. Just as she was saying, the wait list for the Birkin is just insane, the door burst open. Another woman, equally decked out in designer clothes and dramatic makeup, rushed in, out of breath. Lily, the traffic was a nightmare, and parking here is impossible. I am starving. It was Amy. Her eyes scanned the table greedily, lighting up when she saw the decanter of red wine. Ooh, Margot. Lily, you know me so well. She plopped into the chair next to Lily without a second thought, picked up the glass of wine that had been poured for her, and took a huge gulp, completely ignoring my presence. The moment Amy sat down, the door opened again. A waiter rolled in a serving cart. On it sat the enormous, theatrical Australian lobster, alongside a glistening platter of bluefin tuna sashimi. The rich aroma filled the room. Lily and Amy's eyes lit up in unison, their full attention captured by the expensive delicacies. Wow, that lobster looks so fresh, Amy said, rubbing her hands together. Hurry, hurry, we're starving. Lily urged the waiter, her face flushed with excitement. The waiter began expertly arranging the dishes. The lobster was placed center stage, followed by the sashimi, the oysters, the chowder, the grouper. One after another, the priceless dishes covered the large round table. It was a scene of pure opulence. Just as the waiter placed the last dish and prepared to leave, I stood up. The sound was barely audible over the women's excited chatter, but it made them look up. Mr. Miller? Lily asked, a little confused as I picked up my jacket. Excuse me, I said politely, gesturing toward the door. I need to use the restroom. A flicker of annoyance crossed Lily's face, but it was quickly washed away by the feast before her. She nodded dismissively. Oh, well, hurry back. You don't want the food to get cold. She immediately turned back to Amy. You have to try one of these oysters. They just came in today. Amy had already grabbed one, expertly squeezing a wedge of lemon over it before slurping it down. She closed her eyes in bliss. Perfect. I didn't say another word. I opened the door, stepped out, and gently pulled it shut behind me. As the latch clicked, I could clearly hear Amy's voice from inside. Forget him. Let's eat. This lobster looks amazing. Lily, pass me a claw. And Lily's laughing reply. What's the rush? It's all for you. Here, try this toro. It's the best part. I didn't walk toward the restroom. I walked straight down the carpeted hallway, out the front door of Poseidon's table, and left. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove away from the impending explosion. Time ticked by. Back in the private room, Lily and Amy were lost in their gourmet paradise. They ate like vultures, the expensive ingredients vanishing at an alarming rate. The Margaux flowed, and their conversation revolved around food, luxury goods, and celebrity gossip. As for the guy who went to the restroom, he was a distant memory. In their minds, it was a given that he was picking up the tab for this lavish meal. When the last oyster shell had been discarded, the final piece of tuna had disappeared, and the bottle of Margaux was empty. The two women leaned back in their chairs, flushed and content. Burp, Amy let out, rubbing her stomach. Lily, that was incredible. Your date might be a little boring, but he's definitely generous. Lily looked smug. Of course. Linda wouldn't set me up with a nobody. He was a bit nosy with all the questions, but for a meal like this, hey. She finally seemed to remember something. Where's that guy? That's a long time for a bathroom break. Amy glanced at her watch. Yeah, it's been almost an hour. Did he fall in? She pressed the call button for the waiter. The waiter appeared promptly. Yes, ladies? Can I get you anything else? Lily asked. The gentleman who was sitting here, Mr. Miller? He went to the restroom a long time ago. The waiter looked confused. Mr. Miller? Ma'am, that gentleman left about an hour ago. 5 left? You're saying he just left? Amy sat bolt upright, suddenly sober. When did he leave? Right after I served the last dish. As I was leaving the room, he walked out right behind me and headed for the main entrance, the waiter recalled. He left. Lily's face went chalk white. All the blood drained out of it. Amy was stunned. But how could he? Lily's voice was a panicked whisper. He didn't have a single bite. Not one sip of wine. He just walked out? Then who's paying for this? The waiter maintained his professional smile. The bill is for this room, ma'am. Would you like to settle it now? He smoothly presented the bill, which had been ready for some time. Lily took it with a trembling hand. Amy leaned over her shoulder to look. When they saw the bowl number at the bottom, they both gasped. $2,800? How is that even possible? Lily shrieked. This is robbery. Amy cried. The waiter patiently pointed to the itemized list. The Australian lobster is market price. This one was £4, so that's $350. The bluefin toro sashimi was $200. The French oysters were $96 for the dozen. Stop reading. Lily snapped, her head whipping around to glare at Amy, her eyes bloodshot. Amy, this was your idea. You were the one who told me to order all this. The lobster, the tuna, the oysters. You wanted all of it. You were the one who wanted the wine. Now he's gone, so you're paying for most of this. Lily, are you insane? Amy jumped up as if she'd been electrocuted. You were the one who said you wanted to test his wallet and see if he was really rich. You ordered everything before I even got here. The wine was already poured. Why should I pay for most of it? We're splitting it 50-50, down to the penny. 50-50? In your dreams. This is all your fault. My fault? You're the one who found a cheapskate for a date. If you hadn't been late, if you hadn't started stuffing your face the second you walked in, maybe he wouldn't have left. It's your fault. You should pay. You're trying to pin this on me? No way. If you don't pay your half, we're done. Amy, you shameless parasite. All you ever do is leech off people. If you don't pay up tonight, you're not leaving this room. The room erupted in hysterical screaming. The two women, who moments before had been best friends, sharing a luxurious meal, were now pointing at each other's faces, shrieking insults. Their perfect makeup was streaked and distorted with rage. Their expensive clothes were rumpled. They fought over who ate more lobster, who drank more wine. The waiter stood impassively at the door, holding the expensive bill like it was the last shred of their dignity. By then, my car was just another set of taillights in the city's evening traffic. My phone sat quietly on the passenger seat. That should be it, right? Mom can't possibly have another one lined up. I still haven't had dinner. I should head home. That night, for the first time in days, my mom put a drumstick on my plate. Alex, she began, drawing out his name. I may have found one more. I didn't even look up for my chicken. Experience had taught me that silence was my best defense. This one, I promise, is different, she insisted. Linda personally vouched for her. Said this girl is the hidden gem she saves for special occasions. If you weren't such a good catch, she wouldn't even consider it. Susan Carter. She's 33, just a little older than you. You know what they say, a more mature woman will take good care of you. Uh-huh. And get this, she's a true golden bachelorette. Oh, absolutely. Very elegant, very put together. You could just tell she'd be a wonderful wife. And most importantly, she has no baggage. A clean slate. Can I say no? Linda said she used to be completely focused on her career, but she's had a change of heart. Now all she wants is a reliable, stable man to build a life with. Doesn't sound so bad, I guess. Of course it doesn't. Alex, I have a feeling this is the one. The universe is finally on our side. Mom, these stats sound a little too what? She's a wonderful woman. What are you hesitating for? I've already set it up. Tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. I'll text you the address. Fine. What one more? 10:55 a.m. I was sitting in a cafe across from Susan Carter. Her gaze was sharp, but it was veiled by a carefully constructed layer of warmth. She took a sip of her lemon water, the cup briefly hiding a faint, pale band on her ring finger where a piece of jewelry used to sit. "You look more grounded than your photo, Alex," she said, her voice soft. "Linda mentioned you're in tech? That's great. Very stable. You know, my requirements are actually very simple. I'm just looking for someone dependable, someone to build a real life with. I'm 33. I was so focused on my career that I let my personal life slide. I've realized now that family is what's most important." She lowered her eyes, a perfect mix of regret and enlightenment. I smiled politely. Just then, a loud, obnoxious voice came from the booth behind her. "Come on, don't be shy. What's wrong with holding hands? We're just getting to know each other. Your hands are so soft." So I glanced over and saw a greasy-looking man with a slimy smile trying to grab the hand of the young woman across from him. "Sick, sir. Please have some respect." The young woman's voice was a mix of alarm and anger as she snatched her hand back, pressing herself against the back of the booth. I didn't move. A waiter noticed the commotion and hesitated, unsure of what to do. Susan heard it too, and her brow furrowed slightly, clearly annoyed that her pitch was being interrupted. "Alex, since we're both here with marriage in mind, I think it's important to discuss a few things up front. It's about being responsible to each other, don't you think?" "Like what?" "Well, while I'm single now, once I have a family, my priority will be the home. So, I'd hope my partner would show his commitment in a tangible way." "Of course." I watched her, knowing the list was coming. "The engagement gift doesn't have to be crazy. Maybe 20,000, just as a gesture of his seriousness. After we're married, I'd expect the husband to be the primary provider. You know how it is. A woman's focus has to shift to the home and the children. In the condo you own, I want my name added to the deed before the wedding. It's not about the money, it's about security, a sense of belonging. But don't worry, I'm not the kind of person who counts every penny. I'll be a good wife." Just then, we heard a small, stifled gasp from the next table, followed by the clatter of a cup. The greasy man was getting more aggressive. The young woman shot to her feet, her face pale, her eyes welling with tears. Susan glanced over, her face a mask of impatience. I stood up. A flicker of anticipation crossed Susan's face, thinking I was about to respond to her terms. But I wasn't looking at her. I walked directly to the next table. The man was leaning back, a smug look on his face, clearly enjoying the woman's distress. He saw me approaching and sneered. "What do you want? Trying to be a white knight? We're on a date. Mind your own business." I ignored him and spoke directly to the woman, who stood frozen. "Do you need help?" I asked calmly. "You could move tables, or I can get the manager for you." My gaze shifted to the man, and it was cold as ice. He flinched, then noticed I was taller and broader than he was. His bravado vanished. "Whatever, man." "Psycho," he muttered. The young woman looked at me like I was a life raft. "Yes, thank you so much," she said, grabbing her purse and moving to stand behind me. I stepped aside and motioned to an empty table on the other side of my booth. "You can sit over there. It's safer." She nodded gratefully and hurried over. The man glared at me, muttering curses under his breath, but didn't dare do anything else. I walked back to my table. Susan had witnessed the entire thing, and her expression had soured. "Alex," she said, her voice edged with impatience. As we were saying, I looked at her and spoke quietly. "Susan, before we talk about security and the future, I have a few questions of my own." She forced a calm expression. "Go ahead. First question, that pale mark on your ring finger is pretty obvious. Left over from a previous marriage." Her face went white. She instinctively hid her hand under the table. "What are you talking about? I used to wear a fashion ring there." I didn't let her finish. "Second question, you said your focus would be on the children. Are you referring to your son? The one who's in pre-K at Bright Horizons? The one you pick up every day at 4:30? Her eyes went wide. Her hands, hidden under the table, began to shake. "How did you know that? Did you investigate me?" My voice remained even. "I was just in the area once. I happened to see you picking him up. He's a cute kid. He called you mommy." She was trembling now. "You're 33, divorced, and you have a 5-year-old son. Does Linda know that? Does my mother?" Susan was speechless. "So I'll get this water. Goodbye." I turned and left without a backward glance, leaving her slumped in her chair. From the corner of my eye, I saw the young woman from the other table watching me go, her expression full of gratitude. I pushed open the door to the cafe. My phone, for once, was silent. When I got home and told my mom that the clean slate was a divorced mother of one, she was speechless. She didn't bring it up again. But after dinner, she appeared with a plate of sliced apples and sat down next to me on the couch. "Alex," she started, her voice tentative. I think the universe might have finally answered my prayers." I didn't even bother looking up from my laptop. This was usually the prelude to the next trial by fire. 7 No, really, this time is different. Well, I didn't react. She pulled out her phone. "Linda feels so bad about the last one that she's giving us her absolute best. A truly wonderful girl, no secrets, from a good family. Her parents are both teachers, and she's a high school English teacher. So gentle, so classy, so smart. And get this, she's gorgeous. An absolute knockout. Linda said she's the sweetest, most well-mannered person you'll ever meet. She sent me a picture. Look, isn't she an angel? I swear on my life, Alex, this is the one." After the parade of wannabe heiresses, control freaks, and pathological liars, I had developed a powerful immunity to my mom's sales pitches and a deep-seated suspicion of all photos. A picture? Ever hear of Photoshop? An angel? You mean Instagram filters? I kept typing. "Mom, you can put the phone away. I've seen Linda's idea of an angel. Just give me the time and place. It's a blind box anyway. No point wasting time on the packaging." My mom's hand froze midair. "Well, fine. Be that way. But you'll see. She's even prettier in person," she huffed. "It's at the Reading Nook, the cafe inside the bookstore. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. A window seat. There will be a copy of Leaves of Grass on the table. It's a nice, cultured environment. It won't cost you much. Just go. Pretend you're there to buy a book. Please? Do it for me." "Fine. I could use a new book anyway." The next day, I deliberately showed up at 3:15. I strolled into the Reading Nook, the smell of coffee and old paper in the air. I scanned the cafe, and my eyes landed on the designated window seat. On the table sat an open, well-worn copy of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. In the chair sat a woman. She was large, probably around 250 pounds, dressed in a comfortable linen dress. Her round face was kind, and she wore a warm, gentle smile. A pair of black-framed glasses sat on her nose, and she was engrossed in a thick copy of Gardner's Art Through the Ages. A half-finished latte sat next to her. She radiated a quiet, intelligent, and slightly goofy charm. Of course, my heart didn't sink. I almost wanted to laugh. Linda's knockout was, predictably, another spectacular failure of advertising. But at least this woman seemed pleasant, a definite upgrade from the others. I took a breath, plastered on a polite smile, and walked over. "Hi," I said. "Are you here to meet Alex?" The woman looked up, her eyes crinkling behind her glasses. Her smile was genuine. "Alex, that's me. I'm Megan. Please have a seat." Her voice was, as my mom had promised, soft and pleasant. I sat down and ordered an Americano. We chatted for a while, about books, about her jobs. She was well-spoken, funny, and refreshingly normal. There was no interrogation, no list of demands. It was, without a doubt, the most enjoyable blind date I'd been on. But I knew, with absolute certainty, that it was the pleasantness of meeting a potential friend, not a potential partner. She was a wonderful person, but she wasn't for me. The physical difference was a gap too wide for me to cross. As our coffees neared their end, Megan seemed to sense it, too. She folded her hands on the table and looked at me, her gaze frank. "Alex, I've had a really nice time talking to you. You seem like a kind, thoughtful person. But you're not feeling it, are you?" I was surprised by her directness, but I appreciated it. I nodded, my tone apologetic but honest. "Megan, you're a fantastic person, and I've genuinely enjoyed this. But I have to admit that I'm typically more attracted to women who are smaller. I am sorta. It's a personal preference." I expected her to look hurt or disappointed. Instead, she burst out laughing. "8. Ha ha, that's great," she laughed, her eyes disappearing in a happy crescent. "That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say." I was completely lost. "I'm sorry." She pushed her glasses up her nose, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Alex, you've got it all wrong. I'm not your date." "You're not." "My sister is," she said, grinning and pointing to a small table right next to ours, partially hidden by a potted plant. There she is. She's been watching you the whole time. I turned my head. At the small table, a woman in a cream-colored sweater stood up, a shy but amused smile on her face. Her presence was as graceful and quiet as a lily. It was the young woman from the cafe yesterday, the one the greasy man had been harassing. Her cheeks were slightly flushed, but her eyes were bright as she held out her hand. Her voice was like a cool, clear spring. Alex. I'm Chloe. I'm the one Linda set you up with. I have to apologize for this, she said, gesturing to her sister. This was Megan's idea. She insisted on coming along to vet you. Megan chimed in cheerfully. That's right. My sister told me how you helped her out at the cafe yesterday, and she said you seemed like a good guy, but she was worried about meeting another creep. So I offered to test the waters, see if you were a shallow jerk or not. Congratulations, Alex. You were direct without being cruel. You passed. Barely. And my sister, well, I think she's liked you since yesterday. Chloe's face turned a deeper shade of pink. Megan, she chided her sister gently. I looked from one sister to the other, then back at Chloe's clear, smiling eyes. So this was it. This was the universe finally cutting me a break. The afternoon sun streamed through the window, illuminating the open book on the table and catching the light in Chloe's eyes as we smiled at each other. Megan gave us a cheerful wave and then left with her art history book. I'm so sorry. My sister is, Chloe began, shaking her head. She's great. A lot of fun, I said, and I meant it. Can I sit down? Please. The atmosphere between us was completely different now. The tension of a first date was gone, replaced by an easy comfort. We talked for hours, not like two people on a blind date, but like two old friends who had just found each other in a bookstore. Oh, she said, suddenly remembering something. She reached into her purse. This is a belated thank you gift, and an apology for my sister's little prank. She handed me a small, paper-wrapped object. I opened it. Inside was a handmade ceramic bookmark. On the plain white porcelain, a few delicate bamboo stalks were painted in blue, next to a line of elegant script. The wind blows, but the mountain remains. It was exquisite. I like to make things sometimes, she explained, her eyes full of a hopeful, nervous energy. I hope you like it. I love it, I said, tracing the smooth, cool surface. Thank you. I'll use it all the time. When we left the bookstore, the setting sun had cast a golden glow over the street. We walked side by side, our shadows stretching out long behind us. So, I said, turning to look at her, does this mean our blind date was a success? Chloe turned to me, a playful smile dancing in her eyes. Technically, Alex, your blind date today was with my sister. I blinked. She winked, then stopped and turned to face me, holding out her hand once more. But now, Chloe Lee would like to formally introduce herself to Alex Miller. I was wondering if he'd be willing to give her a chance. Her eyes were so clear, reflecting the warm light of the sunset in my own stunned face. I couldn't help but laugh. The exhaustion of the past week vanished, washed away by her smile. I took her hand. It was cool and soft in mine. I'd be very willing. I heard myself say, my voice steadier and warmer than it had been in days. It's a pleasure to meet you, Chloe. And this time, no references from Linda are required. She laughed, a sound like the first breeze of spring. My phone rang, ruining the moment. It was my mom. I answered, and before I could speak, her anxious voice flooded the line. Alex, what happened? Did you meet her? Was she really there? Was it what Linda said? Did the universe finally come through? I glanced at Chloe, who was biting her lip to keep from laughing. She could hear my mom's frantic questioning. I cleared my throat and spoke with a newfound certainty. Mom, I said, this time, you and the universe, you both nailed it. I heard a sharp intake of breath on the other end, followed by a relieved, rambling, oh, thank God. Thank the heavens. I hung up, smiling. My mom is so relieved, she's probably lighting a candle for you. Chloe laughed out loud. Well, should we go celebrate? We could get some dinner. My treat. Great idea, I said, but it's on me, and I know the perfect place. I'm all ears, she said, falling in a step beside me. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, and our two long shadows merged into one as we walked off into the warm, fading light of the evening.